I'm going to say something shocking. The BYU Cougars Sweet 16 run is actually great for Utah. I'm going to explain that wild take in one moment on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen and view of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If it's your first time listening, make sure you like and subscribe, and I hope you say subscribed after my take I just offered in the opener as well, too. My name is JT Wistrcill, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. Excited to be joined by one of the co-hosts of Brice and Bianucci, Brice Larson, which you can catch their show 7 to 10 a.m. on 103.9, 98.3 FM, Utah, and the Utah ESPN Radio Network. Brice, always great having you on. So I had a wild take in the opener. I just mentioned, I do think BYU's Sweet 16 run is actually great for Utah in the grand scheme of things. What do I mean by that? Number one, first and foremost, BYU is our rival. So anytime they're having this level of success, obviously it's a jealousy. Like, that drives me nuts. Can't stay at BYU. Like those things I totally get. Like, there's the fan base, the rivalry that goes back and forth. I get that. But when we take a step back and say, hey, how is Utah trying to build their team and their roster moving forward? Very similar to what BYU's done. They brought in an NBA assistant coach who was able to generate a lot of talent and excitement right away, reshape this roster, and now they're in the Sweet 16, and they've also upped their NIL investment. Utah does not have BYU NIL money. They have not landed the top player in a recruiting class, but they are showing improved investment in the NIL. We're going to be talking about the GM addition they just made on tomorrow's show. Also, really good NBA assistant coach already, too. So NIL is upping. You're hiring an NBA assistant who has that respect and pedigree there, too. And BYU saying, hey, this route, this model in the NIL era, it can work, and you can turn things around fast. Yes, BYU is at a higher place than Utah before they hired Kevin Young, before Utah did with what their latest hire was, Brice. But I feel like when you take out the rivalry aspect of this, the fact that BYU is succeeding this way should give Utah fans a lot of hope about how quickly Utah can turn things around.
Yeah, and it's almost identical to the way that BYU hired Kevin Young away from the Suns. You look at what Alex Jensen is doing. He has a similar agreement where he's still working with the Dallas Mavericks at this very moment, but trying to get things ready to rock and roll while the transfer portal is currently open. He brings in Chilius as well to help him out and kind of take over things while he's working with the Dallas Mavericks. And right now they're trying to put it all together at the moment. So yeah, it is interestingly similar to what BYU did. We'll see if it pays off and has the same effect, and if they can bring in the same type of athletes and make a similar run in year number one under Alex Jensen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not expecting Utah to be third in the Big 12 next year. Like, BYU's 26-9. They were a 6 seed, yes, but like they were the top 6 seed, nearly a 5 seed higher like that. I don't expect Utah to be that right away. Just there pretty clearly is a difference in NIL right now. But I will say, Brice, it feels different, and it feels similar to what BYU showed a willingness to do when they got Kevin Young. They said, we're going to step up. We're going to invest more in this program. And the results have been massive. And I got to believe Alex Jensen wouldn't have signed on had that not been the case. Hence why we're already seeing a big GM hire. We're seeing already an NBA veteran assistant come aboard too. This feels different. The energy level, the excitement. I didn't like how Utah, the timing of when they dismissed Craig Smith, but they obviously showed they were willing to pay the buyout too. They're determined to try and get this program back, which leaves me excited about the future of Utah basketball. And once again, because Utah is doing something similar to BYU, which is currently working wonders right now.
And the one part about this that I think about is that with the Utah Jazz being down right now in Salt Lake City, there's a new show in town that's on the court, and it's the Utah Utes. It's the Runnin' Utes up there in Salt Lake City. If they can hit this right, the fan support in the next couple of years can explode for Utah basketball, and it can be back. I was at that game when they played BYU at home in the Huntsman Center, and the atmosphere was incredible. It was louder than I had heard the Marriott Center all season long last year.
Oh, wow.
And it was incredible what type of atmosphere it was in double overtime in that game. If they can put a winning team out there on the floor, the excitement is going to follow. If you build it, they will come. And that's what Utah basketball can do. And I think that they're on the right track right now.
It feels like it. So many guys, do they want to get paid? Absolutely. NIL is part of it. But what's these guys' ultimate goal? Is to go to the NBA, play on the biggest stage, and have an opportunity to get NBA-style contracts. If you have an NBA coach in place, like what BYU has done too, and other teams have done this too, who says, hey, like, yes, some of these other college teams you'll go to, they have a long-standing tradition of college success. But what do I have a tradition of? I know what it takes to compete in the NBA. That is what Alex Jensen can say. And then what can Alex Jensen also do? Here is a competitive NIL offer to what other people are offering too. I do think Utah has good facilities too. I mean, just as someone who I say all the time, I've been a student intern. Like I go to the practice facility, see some of the other areas. Like I like a lot of what they do. Yes, the basketball venue itself is older, obviously the whole Magic and Larry aspect, and they're tearing down and getting a new one anyways. But like you just mentioned, Brice, when that place is rocking and rowdy, it can be really fun. So I still I know it feels like Utah basketball, another year missing the tournament, you make a head coaching hire, but this was a team that overperformed this year and even got to 10th. Like I predicted a few weeks ago, I think Utah is going to make the NCAA tournament next year. Could I be a year off on that? Sure. But I'd be shocked if sometime in the next 3 years, Utah's not in the tournament just because of the overall investment they're making in basketball right now.
And one thing that I'm curious to look at with Utah and Alex Jensen and his coaching staff is how many college coaches does he bring in to put on that staff? One thing that Kevin Young did early on is he went out and got Chris Burgess, retained him, and then he also
where'd he get Chris Burgess from though?
Yeah, right. But he also went out and got different coaches that know the college game because Kevin Young didn't really know the college game, didn't understand a lot of the intricacies and things that went into it. I'm curious to see if Alex Jensen surrounds himself with experienced college coaches on his coaching staff. And to me, that feels like it's the next step for him right now in putting his coaching staff together. I understand you got to go with the GM, you got to go with the guys that are going to go and find your players that are going to be there. I want to see who the other coaches are on the staff and who he surrounds himself with.
You are absolutely right. And I hadn't really thought about that aspect of it. But even in NBA, it's a longer season. Like Alex Jensen, these guys are great basketball minds. They will figure out their adjustment. But the learning curve absolutely helps to have high level of collegiate assistants. And I do expect some to be involved with this Utah team. I would just be surprised if it was completely a pro staff. But even in the NBA, right? 82 game regular season. That's a lot more time, which you have to shape your roster, get your team to playing their best level of basketball. Even the practices and all those things are different. The rules, the regulations, that's where it helps to have high level collegiate coaches in places. And I do think that's something that Utah should add to this roster. They have the right guy in Alex Jensen. I mean, his press conference, I think it was last week now, I thought it was tremendous. I thought you just listening to him talk, I'm like, yep, that is the next head coach of Utah basketball. That's the right guy to lead this program. The fans are excited. There's reports that it's going to be a larger NIL investment. We're seeing that so far in the coaching ranks, and we'll see how the roster ends up being built in NIL too. But it feels like it just feels like it'll be a better team on paper, and you'll have the potential to be good. They're going to be battle tested in the Big 12 too, so they should have plenty of opportunities for Q1 wins coming up in 25. But yeah, definitely excited for the future of Utah basketball, especially since they are trying to do something. The blueprint for success is almost identical, albeit with different level of NIL access to what BYU has done. And we see the Cougars doing it right now. So we'll see how they do against Alabama this evening, but I'm definitely encouraged by the direction Utah basketball is heading in. I'm also encouraged by the direction. Oh, do you want to add something, Brice, real quick?
I was just going to say the nice thing about being in the Big 12 is that you could finish 6th or 7th, and you could still potentially get that NCAA tournament berth. So top 5 might be a little bit of a reach for them in year 1, but 6 or 7 still could get you in the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought they'd be 10 this year. So, if it's like, hey, I mean, they're already 6 spots better than I thought they'd be this year. So they could be just 4 spots better than that. I'll take that. I think there's, there's a chance. So it's going to be fun to cover this team, just like it's fun covering the Utah football team. They did have a quarterback enter the transfer portal, though. Which QB is it, and how will it affect the depth chart? We're going to talk about it in one moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Monarch Money has your back, because with Monarch Money, have you just ever checked your bank account just in general and wondered, hey, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO gives you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. I love a lot of the features about Monarch Money, including their surprising insights. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. So it's that all-in-one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. So it's that easy collaboration. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track and share your personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. You can take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege, all caps, no spaces, at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege, all caps, no spaces, for half off your first year. You can head over to Monarch Money with that code LOCKEDONCollege, all caps, no spaces, for half off your first year today. Spring ball underway for Utah football, and they have another player in the transfer portal. Utah does. This time it is a quarterback, and Dallin Engelman is going to be entering the portal. This is a guy who came over from the JUCO ranks. He's 14-2 as a collegiate starter, but he was a guy that never really saw time. And it's always interesting when guys enter the portal this early in spring. I guess it's just getting to jump start on everyone rather than finish out the practices, try to grow and see where I end up falling up in those ranks. But how will this affect Utah? Not very much. I don't think Dallin was a top 5 QB on this roster. If he was, he might have been 5th. But this one, it just makes sense to me that he feels like, hey, I came to Utah, I tried, I don't really see a path to playing time here. Go somewhere else and get playing time. Totally understand this move from Dallin.
Yeah, it happens all over college athletics, not only on the football field, but in college basketball and other sports as well. Why not go and find a spot where you could potentially try and be a starter? Not necessarily a Power 4 team, but maybe in the Mountain West, maybe somewhere even at the JUCO level, not the JUCO level, but the FCS level. You can find a spot to go and get playing time, might end up making some NIL money here or there as well. And might as well jump into the transfer portal and see what's out there for you. You never know until you get out there and test the waters.
You do never know. This is a guy at the time. He was the top JUCO transfer QB. He was an all-conference quarterback, 14-2 record as a starter, 41 touchdown passes, listed by Rivals as one of the top pro-style QBs in the country, and set the sack record for passing completions in a single game as well, too, at his previous stop. But it's a massive jump, as we mentioned, and we wish Dallin all the best, but feels like there wasn't a path to playing time here. So I definitely think he made the right call. I think he was maybe a top 5 QB, but might have been farther back than that. So who are the top 5 QBs? Well, right now, Devin Dampier seems to be the guy. I'm really interested what's going to happen at the backup quarterback spot, Brice, which for most teams, it's like, oh, why are we talking about backup quarterback? But with Utah, it's like, we need to talk about backup quarterback because of the history of how frequently
Unfortunately,
the starter's getting hurt. So that just becomes part of this, unfortunately. And it's part of the story that absolutely has mattered for Utah over the past. If you look at Joe Coles' tweet yesterday, he did say Devin Dampier and Isaac Wilson were the 2 quarterbacks in today's viewing session. Now, we did say Nate Johnson made a play, so not sure how, if he just came in for a play at quarterback or whatever ended up happening. But the top 2 guys, based on Joe Cole's tweet of the Deseret News, was Dampier and Isaac Wilson. So right now, that leads me to think Wilson is QB2. I still got to believe Nate Johnson's at least QB3. I've said before, I think Nate Johnson's going to win the job, and maybe they just have a different version for how they want to use him. But for college QBs having success, I would argue Nate Johnson's been the most successful QB Utah has on the roster. Didn't go well for Wilson last year. Brandon Zerbrug, the Oklahoma transfer, I think he can be really good. He didn't play a snap at Oklahoma. So I have no idea what he has to offer to. I like Wyatt Becker as a recruit. I think his future's very, very bright. You also got in Bert Ficklin, who I think could be really good. But those 2 guys, freshmen. And just saw what happened with a even more highly touted freshman at the time with Wilson. So that's kind of how I look at the QB room right now, Brice. How do you view it? And what do you make of the at least early reports from Utah spring ball?
I would agree with you for the most part. Although I lean Isaac Wilson, I really like what he has as far as ability wise. I know a lot of people were down on him from last year. I think a new, fresh set of eyes, a new voice to help and guide him in his time. I think more reps too. There's a reason why we saw Isaac Wilson a little bit more in those practices. They want to try and get him as many reps as they possibly can. And I'll tell you what, at the college level, as a head coach and as an offensive coordinator, you don't waste reps. You don't give it to people who aren't going to be out on the field for you or have the chance to be out on the field for you. So that says a lot, just that he's getting those reps in the first place. I think a new system will help him out. And once again, the protection last year just was not great, and it all starts up front. And I think that a lot of people blamed Isaac Wilson for things that were there were a lot more things going on that offense than just Isaac Wilson having, struggles in the backfield. So I lean Isaac Wilson, and I think that we'll see, cross your fingers, you'll have Devin Dampier the entire season healthy, but you never know what could happen in college football. And you might see Isaac Wilson out there for at least a couple snaps, maybe in some mop-up time for the Utes.
Very well could be the case. I did feel like the biggest thing wrong with Utah's offense more times than not last year was Wilson. Was he in? Play calling could have been better. Interior offensive line especially could have pass blocked and run blocked better. Didn't always think receivers were getting open. So like I said, I feel like Wilson was the issue. Do you think though it was more the interior offensive line and then in the play calling?
I think it was.
Yeah.
And then the lack of being able to take the pressure off of him with a solid run game too. I think there was a lot of problems with that offense, and there needed to be a change. And we'll see. We'll see what it looks like. I think that a new style of play. I think that he plays differently in a new style of play, and that he looks like a different quarterback. He's also getting older. Maturity always helps, and the more reps and the more practice that you get, I mean, the kid could turn it around pretty easily. He has the ability to do so. And I think there's a reason he returned back to the University of Utah.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing right there. The fact that he was just a freshman last year. So he's a guy that has immense potential. Should not have been out there. Shouldn't have been. It should have been Cam Rising, him learning. I even wish they used Brandon Rose. It seemed like to me, Isaac Wilson won the job in practice. But playing quarterback in practice is so much different in a game because you don't get hit. And I think we saw that a lot with Wilson struggling to handle the pressure and the timing versus Rose was much better at it in the limited opportunities he got, especially against BYU, where he played the best probably stretch of quarterback play we saw from Utah on the season outside of like the brief times Cam Rising was healthy in the past year, basically. But so Wilson, definitely the guy right there. Zurbrugg is incredibly intriguing, just an Oklahoma guy who he was rated a 3-star prospect, number 18th dual threat quarterback in the class, especially the dual threat aspect has me intrigued with what Jason Beck's offense offers for Devin Dampier too. But just speaking of intrigue, once again, Brice, I can't help but go back to Nate Johnson. I mean, it's every media member. They couldn't tweet about scheme specifics, but everyone was talking about him after that first practice. So it just seems like he's generating a lot of buzz. And if Dampier goes down, because there's been talk about using Nate as a running back, and they said he's a Swiss Army knife type of player, like guy that's going to be used in multiple ways. So maybe he's a receiver even. And he was really good in that role back in the 22 season when he was the third string quarterback with Brandon Rose backing up Cam Rising. So I just got to believe we're going to see a healthy dose of Nate Johnson. And even if it was like, hey, Devin Dampier got hurt. I remember a couple years ago, this is a deep cut Utah fans. Remember the Jaquindon Jackson quarterback package that Utah toyed with in the red zone? I think there's a chance we see something like that with Nate Johnson.
It very well could be. You look at kind of what Gary Bohannon brought to that BYU team last year, in times, and a little bit later on in the season. We didn't see him very often early. Might be a shoulder thing because he was coming off shoulder surgery. But yeah, I think that you could have a package for him, bring him in, let him run the football, maybe let him make a decision or two in that, right? Or if you really want to get fancy, line him up out there at wide receiver, toss him the ball and see what happens. See if something gets open, see if you have something down the field and open it up a little bit. I think that you will probably see him here and there throughout the season, but yeah, we'll see. It just depends on how, what the snap count looks like throughout spring football. And then really once we get into fall, we're going to know a lot more too.
We are going to know a lot more. It's a long process with spring ball. Excited to have those first practices though, and excited to see media doesn't get to see practice tomorrow, but they get to talk to the defensive players. We hear from Coach Witt again too. So looking forward to seeing what reports come out from there. But another thing that's exciting that's on later tonight is the fact that we have March Madness back and the Sweet 16 games are coming up too. So I want to talk to Brice about what it's been like for BYU on this run and how we think a Sweet 16 run for Utah could look and affect things in Salt Lake. We're going to be diving into that in one moment. Today's show is brought to you by Nissan. When you're looking for a great vehicle and a great vehicle, you can have everything and more with Nissan. At Nissan, we're all about stats because numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers are on an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds and quite literally carry the whole team plus the gear wherever you need to go. Powered by twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada Pro 4X is built for big cruise, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada Pro 4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your advantage to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. You can learn more at nissanusa.com. Once again, if you're looking to take your vehicle to new heights, make sure to check out the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. You can learn more at nissanusa.com today. Brice, a Sweet 16 run is something that people at Provo have been hungry for a very long time. Utah got to experience it a long time ago, but not as long as the Jimmer Fredette days. But when Utah had Kyle Kuzma, Jakob Poeltl, DeLon Wright doing their thing under Larry Krzyzewski, but just essentially it feels like this run, like the level of excitement it's generated for BYU. What does a Sweet 16 run do in today's era for a college basketball program, do you feel like?
Oh man, you take a look at the teams that are currently in the Sweet 16 and the fan bases that that are following them. And well, the one other thing that you got to take into account here is that the viewership of the entire tournament has been up. Oh, it's like a 30-year high for the tournament and the viewership as well. Eyes on the program. Imagine what these teams that are in the Sweet 16 now have an advantage over every other team in the country when it comes to the transfer portal. There are kids right now that are in the transfer portal that are really good basketball players that are looking at the coaches that are getting eyes on the players and how much they respond to said coaching. And they look at the programs that are in the Sweet 16 and say, I want to play for that coach. I want to play for Coach Cal at Arkansas. I want to play for any of these coaches that are in the Sweet 16 because that he knows how to get that team there. It would be big in terms of just getting eyeballs on your product, and man, it could be a couple program defining wins if you get the opportunity to.
And what comes with program defining wins and just reaching new heights? Excitement, more fans, also more NIL. When you win, people want to be part of it. It already been reports that BYU is going to be, we already know they're getting Dampier, and it's only going to continue to be good for the Cougars in the NIL department. Same thing for Utah. If they were to keep winning too. And Brice, you mentioned something else I want to talk about, just the fact that we are seeing 30-year, like the highest views we've seen in a long time. There's been a lot made of the lack of upsets we've seen so far. And upsets are great, but it also does lead to less intriguing matchups. Like this is just a fact of it. A Sweet 16, or not a Sweet 16, but a team like a Colorado State, like a 12 seed, that's the perfect kind of cutoff there. But it's not good for good for the conference tournaments when you get insane blowouts. What we love about March are the crazy finishes and everything there too. So to me, I know people have been frustrated by the lack of upsets, but I still feel like it's been a great tournament so far. I've loved watching the games. They've come down to the wire, and I'm incredibly excited for the Sweet 16. And that's with the highest double-digit seed. There's only one, and it's Arkansas and John Calipari.
Yeah, I go back and forth on this one because I'm a mid-major guy. I love these mid-major teams. I love seeing upsets. I love seeing teams make deep runs into the tournament. On the other side, even with some of the quote-unquote high-profile games, we've still seen blowouts. We haven't seen a ton, in at least in the round of 32, of close games. There have been a couple. Don't get me wrong, a couple of great ones. Gonzaga and Houston was a fantastic game. BYU and Wisconsin was great, but there were a lot of games like Duke just steamrolled their way to the Sweet 16. There were a couple of other ones that come to mind. Texas A&M wasn't necessarily competitive in their second round game, and just a struggle to see great matchups, even though you had big Power 4 names in there. So I don't necessarily think that, some of these games that we're going to see in matchups that we'll see in the Sweet 16 mean that they're going to be close games. Hopefully that does. Hopefully it's going to be great matchups. But at the same time, I can understand why more people want to watch, Arkansas and Coach Cal take on a big name versus maybe if UC San Diego were to get there.
Yeah, and I love having an upset team, and I wanted Colorado State to win. I thought it was a heck of a run, and I think Minnesota made a home run hire, grabbing their coach as well too. I think he's going to do big things up there for the Gophers, but it is a mix and a balance, and I will be very happy if that upset next year includes the Utah Utes knocking off a higher seed, but got a long time to go to see how it all ends up shaking out. But Brice, in the meantime, there's a lot going on right now in the world of sports. Please let everyone know where they can find your stuff at.
No doubt. 103.9, 98.3 ESPN, The Fan. We are on every single weekday morning, 7 to 10 a.m. You can find myself and my co-host, Jordan Bianucci, there every single weekday morning. You can also find us on the Brice and Bianucci podcast, wherever you get your podcast. We talk a lot of Utes. In fact, and we talk a lot of everything around the entire state of Utah. I had Jared Calhoun, the head coach of the Aggies, on the program not too long ago. And we are venturing to get Mr. Alex Jensen on the program once he gets settled into Salt Lake City. So keep your eye out, and we'll continue to put in those requests up on the hill.
Brice, thank you again for stopping on.
Absolutely.
Reminder for everyone, too, with March Madness here, if you want to know the latest about what's going on in the tournament, you got to check out the Bracket Breakdown.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
That's going to do it for today's Locked On Utes. Make sure you check out Locked On College Basketball, and we'll be back with you tomorrow talking all things Utah football and Utah basketball. The Howard GM will tell you more about him on tomorrow's show. We hope to see you then.